right. So, you know what? Matt made a really good point that at least 85% of successful job searches have a lot to do with networking. And I tell all of my clients, and to be honest with you, this is not even new information. I've told my clients for years and years. I've been doing this for um, 23 years now, I think. I started Resume in 2001. So I've been a resume writer and job coach since then. And quite frankly, if anything, I've just seen that percentage creep up and up and up. So this is not new information. It is vital information. Networking, whether it's going to be in person or online, say through LinkedIn or so, it's just fortune favors the bold kind of thing that really has to become your mantra when it comes to networking. Networking with the people who are working in the field that that you want to be in. Smart. That's absolutely smart. So I think that's a really good thing, especially as people are kind of homing in on what their goals are. That does mean that you can be more focused. You don't have to network with everybody. Uh, like I said, you can be more focused in it. So I think that's a good thing. So that was good. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. And of course, the best presentations start with list of phobias, right? So that's where I'm going to start mine. This is a graph of the top three, well, many others too, but I'm pointing out the top three phobias among any large measured group. This is not these are not specific to gender, ethnicity, age, financial status, nothing, because really this kind of just breaks through all of those barriers. And here's what we're looking at. The third most common phobia is arachnophobia, which, if anyone knows this, phobia is the fear of, anyone know?
Spiders.
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 Exactly. The second most common phobia is necrophobia, which fear of dying.
Oh, okay. That is not the one I was thinking of. Thank
Oh
goodness.
dear. Okay, you can put it in the chat to me privately what you were thinking of then. I don't
Okay.
know what's going on there, but no. So necrophobia is the fear of dying. Okay, and the number one common fear among any measured group is glossophobia. Okay, Matt, do you?
I do not know that one off the top of my
Okay,
head.
okay, and glossophobia is the fear of public speaking.
Oh. Mhm.
So really, let's think on that about for a moment. We are more afraid of public speaking than we are of spiders and dying. I mean, that's pretty serious, right? And so
Wow.
I think that glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. Now, networking is not necessarily public speaking on a stage in front of a bunch of strangers, but I'll tell you something. Some people really think that it's just as scary. Going into a room close, in close quarters with people, having to exchange business cards and giving the elevator pitch, right? That can be a really anxiety inducing situation for a lot of people. So I understand, with so many people having this fear of public speaking, I understand how networking can really seem like a nightmare. Now, fortunately, we've got a pretty decent group here of networkers, which is really good. So hopefully this glossophobia is not something that's panic striking anybody here on this call. So, but it is, I think that it's really kind of important, but also kind of fun, to point out that this really is it's real. It's real. So addressing that and kind of doing your own little head check measure of how do I actually feel about networking with strangers, going into a room, just going up to people and say, hey, what do you do? My name's Lauren. What do you do? Give yourself a little gut check on how that makes you feel. And if that gives you any kind of, anxiety or even pause, then that's another issue that then we can work out. Well, how can I've got some great networking tips for introverts and all sorts of stuff. So we can talk about all of that. Okay, so and then we're going to keep it on fears for just a little bit, not my whole presentation, I promise. But For those of you, well, and like I said, I think this group is actually pretty decent with it, but we'll still go over it anyway. My question to people who really don't like networking is, which fear is worse to you? The fear of failure or the fear of regret? Okay, and in terms of networking, it looks like this. The fear of failure means messing up, maybe not bringing enough business cards, or of course, maybe forgetting your elevator pitch, or not really having a smooth elevator pitch. Or just the fear of missing out. Well, I'm going to go to this just because I know this is a good event. I know I can meet a lot of people. I know I can meet a lot of people who I'm trying to network with. So think about that. If you're actively not networking, if you're actively putting other things on your calendar instead of networking, is it because you are getting some anxiety or even fear about it? And then which fear? So each one kind of requires a different thought process. So it's something to just kind of take a look at and see if this applies to you. So let's talk about elevator pitches. Well, we'll talk about the length of time in just a little bit, but the purpose of your elevator pitch is to, number one, connect quickly with people who are in the networking room. Now, by the way, there are a couple different types of networking. And for the purposes of an elevator pitch, pretty much it's going to be an in-person. You could also be doing a Zoom call, but the elevator pitch, a lot of times that is an in-person event, which, fortunately, those things are opening up en masse right now, which is great. But it could be, so the networking event could be at a structured format where everybody, say like at a job search club where everybody is sitting around a table, everyone has their resume or their, what am I trying to say? Their, I'm losing the word here, but a handout that's kind of like a resume but has different information on it. And for whatever reason, I'm having a senior moment, I can't think of the word right now. But that's going to be a structured format where everyone has 30 seconds. There could even be someone there with, the little egg timer. Or it could be an informal situation where people are mingling, like an after hours mixer, maybe held where people go get a glass of wine and then just walk around and talk with anybody. Two different types of network. Bill, Alan, thank you. That was actually going to bug me. So, and Ashley, but it also talks about what your target companies are that you're looking for, target roles. So it's a little different because it's actually more of a networking tool, more above and beyond a profile. Okay. And actually, if you'd like I'm more than happy to send an example. We can talk about that at the end as well. But either way, so whether it is a structured networking setting, like a job club or industry association, or if it's an informal kind of get-together mixer, the purpose of your pitch is to whomever you're talking with, you want to connect quickly with them. You want to inspire others to come talk to you and ask you about what you do. And you want to let other people know that you are interesting, memorable, unique, and expert in what you do. Okay. So, and this is a lot. I know this is, this is kind of lofty goals for your little, for your 30-second elevator pitch, but it can be done. Okay. So let's go over this really quickly. Connect quickly. When you give your elevator pitch, you want to use words and ideas and concepts that people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, I know someone that she should talk to, or gosh, I did something similar. I'd like to talk to her more about that. Just making whatever it is, just make a quick connection with people that will inspire others to come talk to you. Okay. And then using that 30-second framework for those last four things: interesting, memorable, unique, and expert. And for me, it always comes back to those four things: interesting, memorable, unique, and expert. If you can accomplish that in your elevator pitch, then you've done a really good job. Okay, so let's talk about the length of your pitch. Typically, I like to have a couple different versions of my elevator pitch ready. So and like I said, your elevator pitch for me, it comes down to these last four things: interesting, interesting, memorable, unique, and expert. That's what we're shooting for. And, here's why I say this. So, I don't right now, but throughout my career, I've belonged to a lot of different networking organizations, including my local chambers of commerce. Now, if you've ever gone to a Chamber of Commerce event, you can pretty much guarantee that 30% of people in the room, probably more than that, 40% of people in the room are going to be the realtors. Let's see, and then there are, the promotional products people, that's probably going to be about 10%, but you're always going to have, in certain fields and industries, you're always going to have more than one person. So let's say that the room is 40% realtors. How is a realtor going to make themselves stand out and get people to connect quickly, inspire others, and be interesting, memorable, unique, and expert? That takes a really good elevator pitch. It takes a little bit of creativity, because if you're just saying, oh, I'm a real estate agent who loves to show houses, and I love negotiating contracts, and I work for both the buyers and the sellers, well, that's going to be everybody, every other real estate agent there. So that's why coming up with some really interesting things is important. Now, I mentioned before, I think I mentioned before that I have a couple different elevator pitches, and it's because it depends on who the audience, who the rest of the crowd is going to be. If I am networking with a job club, okay, and those people could be in any industry, but generally they're there to get job search advice. Well, my elevator pitch is going to be talking about my expertise in the job market. But if I am going to an industry event where I'm actually networking with other resume writers and career coaches, I've got to change it up a little bit. I'm going to talk about the additional things that I do, such as leading workshops, talking with the media, being a media source when they're doing stories on the employment market, things like that, because it wouldn't make sense for me to talk about resume writing when I'm in a room full of resume writers. So you really want to consider your audience and come up with something that's appropriate for them. Okay. Oh, and all right. So this is where we were actually. So the length of your pitch, this is what I was talking about before. I usually have a 10 seconds, just kind of a quick one to get the conversation started, for when you're in those informal kind of mingling around with your glass of wine. But then I also do have a 30-second one. And oh gosh, every once in a while, a networking group will say, well, everyone's going to get a minute. That doesn't happen too much. And to be honest with you, I don't think it should, because it's just nice when everyone has a little bit of a chance. So I think 30 seconds is perfect. So you want to have a 30-second pitch and a 10-second pitch at least. And with those two, you will be armed well for just about any networking situation. Okay, so here are some thinking points when you're crafting your elevator pitch. Now, if you are currently working, or if you know the type of work that you're looking for, and you enjoy it, you're an accountant and you are looking for a job as an accountant, or you're an accountant and you're not looking for a job, you're just networking, but you love being an accountant, well, then why were you meant to do this work? Think about that. The work that I've done, have I really felt called to do this work? Do I feel like there's a reason why I'm doing this? And I will tell you, as a career coach and resume writer, I feel like I was meant to do this work 100%. I think if I was doing anything else, I might be miserable. As a matter of fact, that's how much I love this work. So that's actually a really easy thing for me. I can talk for a long time, actually, on how I absolutely love giving people the resources that they need so that they can go on and be fulfilled in their career. Not just that, but then come back to me every year or two, and we'll add on all the new great things that you've done. So all of that is really exciting for me. Another thing you can talk about is what makes you good at your job. Is there something in particular? Is there just something that you're really, really good at in this particular area of work? What compliments do people give me? That's always a good one, because if people repeatedly say, oh gosh, you're really good at this, or you really saved the day when it comes to this, tuck those away, because that might actually become part of your elevator pitch. You know, when other people give you compliments, usually, how do I want to say this? You may think that you're really good at one thing, but if people are paying you compliments in another area of your work, pay attention to that, because you may not be giving yourself enough credit in this other area, you know, of your work. But if people are complimenting you on it, obviously you're standing out in the field. So that's an important thing to hang on to. And then this last one, what would people miss out on if they didn't hire me or if they didn't work with me? So for example, as our recruiter, or I'm sorry, as our realtor, you know, a realtor could say, you know, if people would miss out on, you know, whatever extras. When my husband and I bought our house, gosh, 20 years ago, and it's our forever house, our realtor also owned a contracting company. And as a thank you for our business, he had his crew coming out. I think it was like the first Saturday, whatever, after we had moved in, and they put all new gutters on our house for free. Oh, we were thrilled, you know. And so something like that, he could say, what people would miss out on is a realtor who understands, who is a general contractor. So when I'm walking my clients around the house, I can point out things that they are going to have to spend money on in their first year, and we can negotiate that into the contract. And that's kind of how he actually did introduce himself to us. And my husband and I were first-time buyers, and we were just like, that's fantastic. And he, I mean, by the time everything was said and done, I think my husband and I both wanted to call him Dad because he was so good at it. But you know, so those little things that just separate you from other people, that's what you want to think about. That's what you want to think about and bring into your elevator pitch. And when you do, those things become really memorable. And I can't tell you how much business we sent to that realtor over the years because he was just fantastic. And unfortunately, he's left the state, so I can't give him more referrals. I would if I could. But yeah, so you know, those little things, those are really cool and memorable. Let's see, here are some others. What problems do I love to solve? Now, if I were going to pick this one out for myself, one of the problems I love to solve are really difficult resume challenges. Maybe I've got someone who's a job hopper and they keep, you know, they stay at their job maybe a year before they're bouncing off to something else. That's not an easy resume to write. I also love, my favorite resumes to write are when people are transitioning to a new industry that they haven't worked in before. And the way that I say it is, you essentially have to write a story that hasn't happened yet in a resume. So those are the types of problems I absolutely love to solve. Give me someone who's got a tough, challenging employment background. That's a resume that I want to write. And that's, you know, that's a really good thing to throw into an elevator pitch because it's putting the challenge out there. And if anyone does have that challenging background, they're going to be like, ooh, I might be in really good hands. So, the next one, explain your work in clear language. Again, I've gone to a lot of networking events over the years, and I'll hear people use what I call biz buzz. And biz buzz is either industry jargon that no one else in the room knows. My IT people are kind of infamous for doing that. IT and engineers, by the way, they love talking in their own language. But I also have, you know, I've had people say, well, I provide business solutions. I provide business solutions for small business owners. Okay, so as he says this, then your job is to ask, oh, what kind of solutions? Who are your clients? And, you know, using that kind of language where you have to like play 20 questions to get to what it is this person does, no one wants to do that. You know, no one wants to feel like they're your audience member. So just explain what it is, what you do in clear language that anybody can understand, even if they aren't in your industry. Okay, the next one, what to highlight? Again, those 4 things: interesting, memorable, unique, and expert. Okay, and then what to omit. So this one, hang on one second, water break here. Okay, often when I will hear people give their elevator pitch. And this, I've really heard this more in the structured, where people have 30 seconds and there's the person with the buzzer standing there. I'll hear people say something like, well, my name is Lauren Milligan and I'm a resume writer. My company is Resume Day. And if you want me to look at your resume, you could send it to me at lauren@resumeday.com. Or if you want to talk to me, you can give me a call at 630-901-3595. Yeah. Here's the thing. No one is taking down your contact information, and that's the job of your business card. Okay. So basically omit things that should already be on your business card. And by the way, when I hear people say that kind of elevator pitch, I already know they're nervous. They haven't prepared. They weren't ready for this. They don't like to, stand up and introduce themselves in front of a crowd. So it really is just a matter of nerves, anxiety, and no preparation. Okay. But here's the thing, with a little bit of preparation, the nerves and the anxiety are really going to lessen. So being prepared, having an elevator pitch, even if you have to read it a couple times. I think that reading an elevator pitch in a group setting is better than no elevator pitch, or a clunky one, that shows that you aren't prepared. That's just me. And then if you are going through any kind of career transition, this is one that people really get hung up on a lot, because they're saying, well, okay, I'm this, but I don't want to be this anymore. So how do I talk about that without sounding like I don't know what I'm doing? This is a problem that a lot of people come to me with, and quite frankly, it's not that difficult to solve. So here's my solution for that. You talk about your top 3 transferable skills. Okay, so you could say, well, I have spent a long career in human resources, but now I'm looking to get over on the sales side of it, where my skills in contract negotiations, high-level presentation, and public speaking will help me make that seamless transfer. Whatever it is, but take 3 transferable skills and focus on the skills. Now, I also have people who know that they're going to leave the industry that they're in. Maybe it's going through massive layoffs or something, but they don't know the industry that they're going to end up in. Well, that's okay, because we're still going to use those 3 transferable skills. I was in HR for the, I don't know, let me think of a dying industry. Journalism. Oh, whoa. And I'm looking to leave that industry. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to land up, but most likely I'm going to be using my skills in boom, boom, boom when I get to that new industry. So if you're looking for any type of position that requires these 3 skills, I'd love to talk to you and pick your brain. It could just be something like that, where your elevator pitch is more asking for advice rather than giving information. Okay. Any questions on any of this so far from anyone? Here are, and by the way, feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want to hang on to it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But here are some ideas on how to develop your pitch. In an upcoming screen, I've got kind of a template that will follow as well, and then you're going to plug some of these thoughts in there. Okay. So the first one, what sets me apart from other people who do this work? Okay, so what sets me apart from other resume writers, from other career coaches, and then think about what that might be. The next one, and this is always very interesting. There's, it can be kind of a fun story about the transition, but maybe you've got an unusual background. Maybe you started. What was this? I had a client very recently. He started in the insurance field. He was from another country where he worked in insurance. He came here, easily got a job in insurance because he had European experience, and this company wanted that. But while he was at this company for a couple of years, and then they started to automate more of their process, and they had an IT person who really didn't know what he was doing. This person wasn't the right person for the job, whatever. And so my client, who was working in insurance, and not as an agent, it was more of like claims. I should know this since I wrote his resume, but it was more, well, we'll say claims. but he kind of taught himself this new automated system that they were working on, and then just kind of like kept teaching himself about it. And so then anytime they needed any kind of IT help, he became the person that they went to. And then he decided, I like IT. I like IT better than insurance. And now he's been in the IT industry for the past 10 years. Currently working at a large company in St. Louis in their IT department. But there was a really interesting story, about that change that we kind of worked into his elevator pitch, as well as his resume summary, as well as his LinkedIn about section. It all can kind of tie in together. But it started with his insurance experience over in Europe. And it just was such a kind of a fun and interesting story. It had, the geographical elements to it and everything. It was really cool. And not a lot of people really knew this about him. And, because it's not something that he was really talking about all the time or whatever. And so then once he started saying this elevator pitch at different industry events and things like that, people were really, really interested, and they had a reason to go talk to him. I've got, family who lives over in, England or France, different areas that he had lived in and everything. And it created a lot of interesting conversations. So if you've got anything that's a little bit different, a little bit left of center in your background, go ahead and bring that into your pitch, because it really could perk up some people's ears. And then the next one, if you've won any awards or any kind of accolades in your industry, that's always very, very interesting. And then, of course, why you love this work or why you love this industry, what you love about the industry or the work. Just that. And here's a tip when it comes to this one in particular. If you're talking about what you love about the industry or the work that you do, make sure that it's genuine. Because if you're saying that you love something about it, but you've got this kind of like flat, monotone delivery, people aren't necessarily going to believe it. But when you're talking about things that you really love, that you enjoy, that gives you that spark, if it's coming from a genuine place, your energy is going to go up, and people gravitate towards that kind of higher energy. Okay, so really think about this, because I think this is actually a really good one to put into your elevator pitch. Why you love your work, what you love about your work, because again, your energy is going to raise, and that's like a magnet. People really do gravitate towards that. This next one, an insider tip. So if you have any kind of insider tip, that's always, that establishes you as an expert. I was at a networking event, and this woman, she was an insurance broker, and it was the very first year. So I know it's been a number of years ago, but it was the very first year that ACA came out. ACA is also Obamacare. And she had a really good tip about how to figure out something with your taxes. I don't even remember what the tip was, but she said, if anyone's looking into ACA, you want to look at your taxes and figure this out first. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's really smart, because my husband and I we're both self-employed in different businesses. ACA's been a godsend. She's my broker, and she's been my broker since that very day that she said this about her elevator pitch. So I loved it. I trusted her as the expert. She's done right by us since then. But that won her our business. So one of the insider tips that I give as a resume writer and career coach is, with the exception of Americans with Disabilities Act, there is no such thing as an illegal interview question. If you'd like to know more about that, come talk to me later. And of course, everyone would come talk to me later saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. You're wrong. It's like, actually, no, I'm kind of right. And I'd explain what it is, but it's just, this is a good thing for people to be aware of, things like that. But if you can give a little insider tip that's going to kind of get in people's brains and just bug them a little bit, that means that you're going to be memorable. You're going to stay with them, and they're going to reach out to you if they've got questions or comments or just need more information. And then, of course, when we talked about before, problems that you love to solve in your industry, and this last one. Now, I did not always talk about this. This has not always been on my slide, but the more and again, I've been doing this for over 20 years, so things have kind of evolved since then, but it really is okay for us to kind of bring in elements of our personal life um, into our professional lives. It used to be verboten. It just used to be you could not even pretend to have a personal life when you were at work. Well, fortunately, we've evolved beyond that, thankfully. So if you do something really interesting, if you do some kind of volunteer, or if you, I don't know, run marathons, or if you, visited every country on earth, or, all 7 continents, or, if there's, teach ESL, whatever it is. But if there's something that's really interesting that you do on your personal time, bring it into your professional setting. For example, one of my hobbies, I'm a welder. And so if there are, when I'm giving a presentation and it seems like the right crowd, I'll throw something out about that, and immediately I've got all the guys coming to me. Really, you're a welder? What kind of welding do you do? Do you do TIG? Do you do MIG? I'm like, yeah, I get MIG and I blah blah blah. So it's just a really good way to develop an additional rapport that you might not have otherwise. So think about that too. But all of the now here's the thing: you're not going to put all of these elements into your pitch. Let me be clear. You're not going to put all of these elements into your pitch, because if you do, then we're looking at like a 3-minute pitch instead of a 30 seconds. So you want to pick one, maybe two, but picking two of these and having some really good content for just these two, you're going to have a great elevator pitch. You're going to stay memorable. You're going to show that you're an expert. You're interesting, unique, all of those perfect things. So this, and please feel free to take a picture of this slide as well. These are 4 starter templates. So this is just the first sentence, and then you're gonna put on your additional content. Okay, so this first one, if you are, I'm gonna use accountant. Okay, if you're an accountant and you're not job seeking, okay, so you're not saying I'm looking for you're networking as an accountant. My name is Tom and I am an accountant. This next one is if you are looking for a job and you know what type of job that you're looking for. Generally, if it's similar or the same type of job, my name is Tom, and I'm looking for another accountant position, and then go on with the rest of your pitch. The next one is if you are transitioning and you know what you're transitioning to, what type of job you're transitioning to. So that means transition means doing something different than what you're doing now. And then the fourth one is the other situation I covered, which is when you're transitioning, but you're not exactly sure what you're going to be doing. But again, we're talking about those 3 skills. I want to use my skills in X, Y, Z, and there you go. Okay. So this is a good starter sentence, and the reason I canned this out is because I realized many years ago, I would give this presentation, been tweaked through the years, obviously, but I didn't give this. I didn't say how to start it. I would just give all the different thinking points, and people were like, well, I think I know what I want to say, the problem I love to solve, or, whatever, but I don't even know how to start it. Oh, well, that's the easy part. So here you go. Here's your starter. Then you're just going to tack everything onto the end of it. Okay, so now let's see. Okay, so these are the pitch developers again. Let's see. Okay, so now let's really quick talk about delivery. Okay, when you're delivering your pitch, that's just as important as the content that you have in your pitch. So you really want to, if you're the type of person, and this happens a lot, when I talk with people and say, so what did you do in your job? What special things? What did you accomplish? How did you make that job bigger and better than what it was the day before you started? And a lot of times I hear from people, I don't know, I just did my job. Ugh. Okay, so right there, it's like, no, time out. Everyone has done something great on their job, even the jobs they don't necessarily love. There's probably something that you've done that is noteworthy. So let's just work a little harder to find it. Because we were meant to work and produce and be productive, right? So saying that you just did your job, something tells me those people who say that, they're just not giving themselves credit. And sometimes they need a little bit of a nudge to say, I'll bet you did something kind of cool. So let's think on that. And that's really where I come in. And I really love helping people kind of remember, oh, yeah, you know what, that was kind of a cool thing. Okay, that's great. That's all I need is just one little cool thing, and we can develop an elevator pitch around that. Okay, so make sure to think on that. You know, what have you done beyond I just did my job? And then next, are you interested in your own words? What is your delivery like? Is it a flat, monotone affect where, you know, here's the thing. For anyone listening to this, if you've ever listened to a speaker who just kind of talks like this, or maybe they're not even speaking all that loudly and they're just kind of giving you content like this, like how inspired are you to listen to that person? Don't put your audience to sleep. You have to sound interested in your own words if anybody else is going to be interested in your words. So, you know, just make sure that you are, that you're not speaking too slowly or too fast. Sometimes I do that. I've actually had people ask me if I'm from New York. No, why? Because you talk kind of fast. So in my mind, I'm usually kind of telling myself, slow down, slow down. But watch your speaking speed, watch that tone and the volume. You know, no monotone. Sound interested in your own words. And that's the best way to get people interested in talking to you. Oh, and then this last sentence, it's a pet peeve of a lot of people, but you know, when people end sentences on a question, you don't sound very confident in what you're saying. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. But I think when people use that, it is a case of nerves. That's all. So you know, it doesn't make me angry or anything, but it's just like, oh, let's work on this person's presentation a little bit. There's actually a commercial out right now for bath fitters or something, and the woman ends almost every sentence on an up question. It's like, oh, I can't listen to this commercial. So don't end your sentences on a question. And the more you do this, the more you improve upon those habits, and hopefully, you know, replace those habits with better presentation skills. And then my next tip, again, watch your watch. So if this is structured networking where you've got 30 seconds, by all means, use every nanosecond of those 30 seconds, but make sure to stop on time. Because if you go over, now you're taking up someone else's time, and that's just not really fair. So there's always a person who, you know, 30 seconds is come and gone, and now we're like rounding the 2-minute mark or so, and it's just like, oh, a good facilitator will stop that person. But I've been in those situations where that facilitator did not stop those people, and it's a little aggravating. So just watch your watch, keep it as close as possible to 30 seconds. Number 6, again, from what I talked about before, don't make people ask 20 questions to figure out what it is you do. By saying, you know, I help small businesses solve their problems. Okay, are you the janitor or the CEO? Because, you know, it's both of those and everyone in between. Just cut to the quick. Tell me what it is that you do. My last tip is don't be a one-way networker. And what I mean is this. And I have witnessed this. I have witnessed this so many times, so I know that this actually happens. It sounds kind of made up, but it's true, unfortunately. You'll see people just going, you know, you'll see a person, hopefully just a person, not people, but you'll see a person going through the crowd, hitting up every single person with their business card. Hey, I'm Lauren with Resume Day. If you need a resume, make sure to give me a call. Hey, I'm Lauren with Resume Day. If you're in a job search, make sure to give me a call. Hey, I'm Lauren. You know, and you don't stop and talk to the other person. You know, you're just passing out your card, trying to get your card in everybody's hand, but you aren't showing any interest in the other people who are there. At the end of the night, the people who are putting up the chairs and sweeping the floors and everything, they're going to say, who the heck is this Lauren Milligan? Because all of her business cards are tossed on the floor. Because no one wants to be that, you know, the audience member of a one-way networker. if you're going to take the time and introduce yourself, then you take the time, listen to the other person, be interested in what the other people have to say, because you just never know who you're going to meet, and you're never going to know the potential for opportunities when you're actually talking with someone until you actually talk with them. Okay, so smart networking. Smart networkers are curious. Again, asking other people questions about what it is they do, what brings them here tonight, whatever, but asking great questions. They're interested. So when someone is talking to you and telling you their story, that you're interested in asking good follow-up questions. You go with the purpose of learning something new and to find commonality, asking questions that will actually say, oh gosh, we have that in common. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat tonight. And here is a little tip. If you do have business cards, if you have, I purposefully always make sure that the back of my business card, when I'm ordering more business cards, I make sure that the back is not only blank, but it's not glossy. Okay, so it's just kind of regular cardstock, because on the back of it, I write a little note. I don't do this with everybody because then I'd just be writing a ton of notes all night. But if something really stuck out about our conversation, or if we had something in common that was a pleasant surprise, or whatever it is, just whatever little note, I'll make a really quick note on the back of my business card before I give it to this person. And then the next day, or later in that week, when they're going through all their business cards and connecting with people on LinkedIn, they'll come to my card, hopefully turn it over, and then see that note. If not, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but I really make a point of connecting with people on LinkedIn if I get their business card. And so that's going to be that commonality, like, oh, it was so great to meet you. I remember we both had, I don't know, such and such in common. Would love to join up for a 20-minute Zoom call just to see where else we can take this, take our conversation, whatever it is. But yeah, so I love jotting notes on the back of my business card, and I always make sure that when I order business cards, it's not going to be the glossy, because parents don't like the glossy covering on business cards. Okay, so let's talk about this. Here's a little fill in the blank for you. And I'm going to help you fill it in here. Without something connections, there are no something connections. And without something connections, your network is something. So let's fill this in and help make LinkedIn make a little bit more sense, and make LinkedIn in the top of our networking food chain. So without first degree connections, there are no second degree connections. And without second degree connections, your network is static. So the reason I bring this up is because I truly feel that, first degree connections, of course, first degree connections are very, very important. However, when I'm connected with someone and I'm looking to expand my network, or meet people in a certain industry, or meet people in a certain company, I'm going to go and I'm going to find my second degree connections that fit that bill, because that's how I grow my network. First degree connections are awesome, but I've already made that relationship. I want to grow my network. I don't want a static network. I want it to be always growing and be dynamic. And so I look to my first degree connections for my second degree connections that I can then turn into first degree connections. Okay, that really is the best, the biggest point of LinkedIn is to get people into your first degree connections, so that when it's time to network, you're going to have a really flourishing and robust network with which to do that. Yeah, and that's it. Okay. So
Yeah, Lauren, I'm just
yeah.
for the very last slide you showed, the one prior to this one. Can you just give us like maybe a quick example of the second part where you would actually reach out to a second degree connection of somebody, of a mutual first degree connection, and what you might just say to them?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I do this all the time. So one of my, a couple years ago, not a lot of years, just like maybe two or so years ago, I was going through looking for information on LinkedIn about not a very pleasant situation, but job search scams, because job search scams are out there like crazy. On LinkedIn, unfortunately, it's just, there's just not much you can do about that, unfortunately. But there are a lot of people that are trying everything that they can to expose the scammers on LinkedIn, which is great. And I had a client who had been caught up in a scam. Fortunately, he didn't lose any money from it. He stopped before it was a fake job ad, and they said, well, all you have to do is buy your computer from us up front, and then we'll reimburse you with your first check. And that's when the little bell went off, like, wait, why am I buying computer equipment? He talked to me, we exposed it. But I knew that a very good friend of mine, Mark Dyson, he's another job coach, and he talks a lot about job scams. So I reached out to him, and then I saw through his network and different postings that he made that there was another person. Of course, his name is not coming to my head right at the very moment, but there was another person who he kept referring to as, boy, this guy, he is shutting down the scammers and he's doing a really good job. So I went to that person, read his articles, read different posts that he made, and I was just like, this guy is fantastic. He's so good at calling out these scammers and identifying them in the first place. So I reached out to him saying, hi, you and I are both friends of Mark Dyson, and I went to Mark to look at some job scam information to help my clients, but I see that you're doing this also, and I'd love to connect with you and get your thoughts on some of this. He connected, and we talk every once in a while when we see different job search scams, but now I've got another expert that I can refer to with my own clients. So now I've got Mark and the second guy, and they're both so smart and doing great things, which quite frankly is great because they're doing a better job than what I would be doing, but I've got them as my experts. So that's how you use your first degree to find good people in your that are second degree connections, but then the point is to make them first degree connections. And that's exactly what I was able to do there. Is to show my contact information in case you need it or any viewers need it.